Hi there, this is David from David Books and Comics, and today I want to talk about one of my favorite characters in the newspaper strips, adventure strips, and that's Dick Tracy. Now, over the years, I've collected some of the paperbacks that were issued by Fawcett Gold Medal back in the 1970s and into the 80s. But I want to show you a little bit of some of the hardcover books I've subsequently collected. So, Dick Tracy first appeared on October the 4th, 1931, in a newspaper in Detroit called the Detroit Mirror. So the character was created by Chester Gould, and initially he was called Plain Clothes Tracy. So a detective, a police officer, but one who dressed in the plain clothes, basically. He The character came out of the 1930s in the days of Al Capone and organized crime, when organized crime was rampant in many parts of North America. And Dick Tracy and Chester Gould were one of the most successful newspaper adventure strips that lasted right up until the present day. So I'm going to show you just some of the books that I have. So there's this one, which compiles a lot. Subsequently, almost the entire output of Dick Tracy's adventures have been published. So that's what he looked like initially. I'll just flip it to the page. Yeah, that's how he looked. That kind of the beaked features that he subsequently took on weren't quite there yet until much later, and that's how I remember him. So I have this book, which compiles the many of the major adventures, and this one. It has the life and times of Chester Gould's immortal character, so America's most famous detective, with photographs, background material, pictures of Chester Gould himself. That's what he looked like. So that's that one. And I also have the case book. This one was put out after the film with Warren Beatty and Madonna. It's one of the better, actually, depictions of Dick Tracy, the more accurate ones, anyway. There was also a serial, television, and a movie serial with Ralph Bird playing the title role that came out in the 1940s. So features some of the main characters, main villains. These stories are pretty hard-boiled, and when the criminal is finally caught, the um, the ending is pretty gruesome. And this one, the celebrated cases of Dick Tracy from 1931 to 51, starting with the first ones to the later ones. So that's what the daily strips look like. They were continuities, so subsequently published. All right, so I'm going to go over the paperbacks. These I first bought back in when they first came out. This is number one in the series, and copyright's 1975. This is a first printing. It's probably the first time that Dick Tracy was ever published in book form. and it tells you the whole adventure and demise of Pruneface, which is a pretty gruesome ending, actually. His criminals, his criminals usually died horrendously, actually, and surprisingly for a newspaper strip, Chester Gould never skimped on showing the uh, the gruesome demise of his characters. Again, this is the first book printing of Snowflake and Shaky. It has two stories. It's quite dense reading, actually, but it flows nicely in paperback form. And this is the first one I bought. This is Mrs. Pruneface. And this was back in 1976, so I was still a teenager when I bought this. Again, it shows the gruesome demise of the lead villains. Chester Gould's stories and artwork I would equate with Steve Ditko's work, actually. His characters and the style of his writings and plots are similar to Ditko's, especially the character, The Question, that Ditko created, and Mr. A, which I will show in a future video. So this is by Max Allan Collins, who took over from Chester Gould in writing the Dick Tracy uh, comic strip for the newspapers. Dick Tracy, I believe, is owned by the Chicago Tribune newspaper company. Then I'll show you the last one of this series that I have. It's a beaten up copy, again by Max Allan Collins. And more than anybody, I think he captured the um, the spirit of Chester Gould's character and respected his the type of style of writing that Chester Gould created. See the copyright there, 7980, Chicago Tribune, New York News Syndicate. This one came out 1990. It's a reprint of a tempo book. And I wanted also to show you this oddball book. This is actually a paperback novelization, you can imagine, of an original story. This is probably a very good copy. Copyright is 1970. So this is a paperback original, as it says there, first printing paperback original. Again, Dick Tracy is best captured in his form as a in the graphic art style, of course, of Chester Gould. And Rick Fletcher was the one who took over um, from Gould, and he did a super job creating his own villains, some of which are memorable. So there you go. So I hope you enjoyed this little video about Dick Tracy, one of the most popular adventure strips of all time, published in newspapers initially in 1931, and still one of the most memorable and most popular characters in graphic art history. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give me a like. And thank you everyone for subscribing. Continue to subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and comment. Feel free to comment. And thanks again for watching. Bye.